Hey guys, as you can see, I didn't get too long ago. Actually, I've just been doing homework, so it's exhausting writing about hybrid cars and their effect on the environment. Who cares? I haven't really been doing videos where I just talk because I like to sing, but this is actually a talking video. So a couple months ago, I met this boy, and on Facebook, and he was friends of a friend, but I hadn't really met him in person. So I finally met him in person with my friends, and he was with his friends, and I'm like, oh, he seems cool. So one of his friends sent me a message on Facebook saying, I think, you're really pretty and you look really good. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. I didn't know if he was there that day or not. He claimed to have been, but I'm not exactly sure. So we met up one day for 10 minutes, and he seemed nice. He was shorter than me. Sometimes it doesn't make a difference, sometimes it does. So at the time, he seemed nice and all, but when we started talking on the phone, I realized that everything turned into an argument. I was like, why is that happening? I mean, that's happened once before with someone, but he changed on his part, and I changed on my part, and now anytime we talk, there's been no argument ever since. So every time there was an argument, every time it was like he's trying to start a debate with me, and every time it's yelling and all that. I'm like, why are you yelling? He's like, I'm not yelling, that's what I talk. I'm like, you're yelling, why are you yelling at me? I don't want a friend that yells at me the whole entire time. It's annoying. I mean, if you know what I'm talking about, then you have experienced it, and it's bad. So finally I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll just try to stop texting him. Hopefully I'll get the hint, because I don't want everything to turn into a huge argument. Unfortunately, he kept texting me, and he's like, why don't you respond? I'm like, I'm busy. He's like, nobody can be that busy, blah, blah, blah. Then we met up again. I'm like, okay, maybe he's just having a bad day or whatever. We met up again, and anytime we met up, it was nice. We would talk, but then on the phone, it would just be oh my god, a completely different person. I mean, I don't know if what I did was wrong, what he did was wrong. So there was one time where he actually, I was sad, and he came at me, gave me a hug, and he's like, oh, don't worry, everything will get better. Pep talks, things like that, or, just be cool, all parents are like that, blah, blah, blah. And I was just, he was nice. That was really, really nice of him. And I appreciate that. But after that, his friend, basically asked, because he seemed depressed, so I asked his friend, I'm like, hey, is everything okay? He seems kind of depressed and becoming really sensitive. Now, I'm not trying to hurt his feelings, I'm just saying he's becoming sensitive. His friend's like, you don't know him, he has anemia, and, starts cussing at me. I'm like, what? I'm just saying he seems sensitive. I'm not saying anything bad about him. So I'm like, okay, alright. And so then I told him what his friend said, and instead of telling his friend not to talk to him, he's like, oh, well, he doesn't talk for me. That's fine, but I'm your friend. If my friend was to talk bad about one of my friends, to their face, I would defend them. But he's his friend is talking to me to my face, and he's not defending me. It's I mean, we've been there for each other. He wanted to meet, I met him. So finally, after him just being rude and mean, I blocked him. And he called me from his landline, which is a no caller ID, and he's like, why did you block me? I'm like, because you're upset. He's like, I'm not upset with you. See, the recent thing was I broke up with my boyfriend. He's like, we should date. I'm like, I can't date. I just broke up. Nobody can date someone right after they break up. I mean, at least give them, like, maybe a few weeks to a month. I mean, you can't just date someone like that. And he's like, why don't you date me? And so finally I just told him straight up. I said, I'm sorry. We're friends? Yes, you've been there for me. But I mean, I'm not the type of person to judge, but he's short, and I don't want to date a guy who's short. And he's like, so my girlfriend's even taller than me. I'm like, I'm not them. Like, you said, you know, there were times where I told him you don't forget about me. He's like, can't forget about you. I like you too much. You know, I care about your personality. I care that you're nice, and I care about that. But that was the last straw. I couldn't date him. So I blocked him. And so his friend yesterday, happens to be a girl who's also Indian, was like, text him, you know, he doesn't want to date, he just wants to be a friend. So finally he called me. I'm like, hello. He's like, hey. I'm like, hey. He's like, what's up? I'm like, nothing. And he's like, why didn't you unblock me? I told you to do it 3 days ago. There's another thing. I don't have to do what you tell me because you're not my parents. So I'm like, well, I didn't want to. I mean, you just started an argument with everything. So he apologized. I mean, he didn't really apologize. He's like, I talk like that to everybody. There was no apology. There was nothing. I'm like, you know what? Finally, I'm like, I don't think we should be friends anymore. And I have never, ever said that to anyone before. And saying that to him, you know, it broke my heart. I mean, but I can't have drama in my life. I'm on the dean's list. I don't need this. And, you know, it's frustrating. I'm on scholarship. I have school to worry about. I have to worry about staying on the dean's list, you know. So, I mean, it broke my heart. He's like, for all I did for you? I just, like, and he was about to go on and on, so I never called me again. It is hard, you know, especially if that person has been there for you. He hasn't been always there for me, but, you know, he was there for me that one time where I needed him, and if my other friends can't do that, then that's okay. So, this is probably going to be my longest video. I'm not exactly done talking about that yet, but another thing that happened was last night I got a call from a guy who I hadn't seen in like 3 weeks. It was like, met him once, he really liked me the first time. Second time I met him, I literally started crying because he was it's just like, I couldn't deal with him. And so he had fun and I had fun the second time. You know, we really like hanging out and stuff like that. And so he never called me after that. I was like, oh yeah, honestly, it's probably not gonna work. I mean, he was a little older. And so he calls me, he's like, I miss you, I really, really liked you the first time I saw you. I'm like, why would you text me after 3 weeks? I'm like, okay, you know what, we can hang out. But then it's like, then he says, you know what, you're right, it's not gonna work, we shouldn't meet. I'm like, I never said that. He's like, bye. I'm like, okay, what was that? He wants to meet again. He really likes me, but he doesn't think it's gonna work out. Why would you? Confused. Very, very confused. So that just goes to show you that sometimes, not always, you gotta let a person go. Like I told you, the guy before him, like, who I did used to have arguments with, yes, I did have arguments with him. But we resolved it after 2 weeks, at the most. This guy, it's been, like, let's see, 3 months, and he's still arguing with me. Even though the moral of all of this is, sometimes if you love something, let it go. Sometimes if you like something, let it go. If someone's there for you, sometimes you gotta let them go. You gotta see what suits you. I mean, I will appreciate him being there for me, but I cannot be there for him at this time, and I cannot be his friend at this time. So, we'll see where the road takes us. But, as of now, I had to stop being friends with him completely. I couldn't deal with this anymore. So if there's drama in your life, either say back off, which I can tell him, like, to stop texting me, otherwise he would be offended, and instead keep calling me. But if you think that person will understand the message, let them down gently. Because I've dealt with people who need some space. Anyways, this is dedicated to one of my subscribers. He wanted to know what went on since I posted something on Facebook yesterday. So this is to you. This is a really long video, probably the longest I've had. So keep watching. Trisha signing off.